Hey guys, and welcome to the November bonus episode. November 2019.
Where'd the year go?
I don't know. It flew though.
It sure did.
It's what happens when you're old and you're sitting there thinking about, I only got so many years left, and all of a sudden the year goes by really quick and you're like, slow down.
Yeah, for real.
Slow down. Okay, let's do this episode.
Okay, let's do it.
Look, I know that we don't do very many UFO episodes, but I found a few abduction stories that I found extremely interesting. So not only are we going to do some UFO stuff tonight, which tonight is going to be a little different because we're going to do an abduction story, but then we're also going to do like famous celebrities and their UFO sightings. There's like a bunch of them, so we're just going to skim through them.
Oh, cool.
So thought it'd be kind of fun. But Sunday's show is actually one of the most famous stories in Canada, and another story from Australia that I thought was cool. And one of the one we're doing tonight is actually from Canada too. So
Yeah, we need to send out our prayers to everybody in Australia too with this big,
Fires
huge
and
fire
stuff.
that's going. It's just heartbreaking.
anyways, you're going to get some UFO stories tonight, and you're going to turn around and get some on Sunday, and then we'll probably go another 10 months without ever doing a UFO story. So that's the reality of it. Okay, so we're going to start with this first story, and it involves a young lady up in Canada by the name of Karina Sables. We'll get into a little more. She's up in British Columbia. But I ran across this group of stories on UFO abductions, and I found one that involved her, and it was a little short story. So I looked it up to see if there was a little more on that story, and I found all kinds of other stuff that's not even connected to that story.
Oh,
So just to tell you the story that I saw, this was I think 1993, and I'm going off memory because I didn't write any of this down on this one. So I'll just give it to you in a nutshell. She had split up with her husband, had some kids. They moved to British Columbia, and she met this guy named Tom. And he decided that, hey, I really like you. I think, we're talking marriage. That's what she said. He's talking marriage. He comes over to her house one night. I guess the kids are in bed. It's a warm night. So they decide to go outside and have tea on the outside balcony. She said while they're sitting there, she's just kind of leaned back in her chair, and she said she feels this strange feeling in her stomach, almost like vibrations in her stomach. And then she said, next thing you know, there is a ship right above them. He sees it. She sees it. He's freaked out. She's just kind of staring at it. And he's like, come on, we need to go inside. She doesn't go inside.
no.
He goes inside, though.
He left her out there?
Yeah, he's like, you're on your own. He leaves her out there. She says a few minutes later, it goes away. He comes back out, and he's like, where have you been? She's like, what do you mean where have you been? I've been right here the whole time. He's like, no, I came out here. You weren't here. I looked, went all back through the woods. I looked through there. I looked all around the front of the house and the back. I've looked everywhere. You weren't here. She's like, I'm telling you, I've been here the whole time. He said, you've been gone for 45 minutes to an hour.
Oh, whoa.
And then he, all of a sudden went into this, well, I'm not going to fool with all these disappearing acts and all this stuff. This is absolutely crazy. So he leaves. And then the next day, he basically sends her a message and said this isn't something he can deal with. And he's just through.
Wow, what a quitter.
So let me tell you where the problem in this is. And it's not really that it's a problem. It's that you'll see when we start talking about the other stories that come up where there might be some people not really sure about the credibility of it. So let's analyze that story for a second. He sees the ship too, but he don't remember any of that.
Oh, he don't?
No, he don't remember any of that. He just knows she was outside and then she disappeared, and for 45 minutes he couldn't find her. But I mean, her car was still out there. So where would she have gone?
Yeah.
And are you that quick to give up on a relationship one time
Oh, yeah.
because you say it just, I don't know, something about it just seems funny. So the long and short of this is, I saw that video and I'm like, well, let me go see what else is on her. Well, I find these other stories, and these stories don't even mention that one.
Hmm.
So the thing that we're going to remember about this, and I said there were some discrepancies and stuff like that. The abductions of Karina Sables, which is her name, it says that it's one of the most controversial and outlandish claims on record. That's what it says, and that's not even talking about that episode. It says even within the UFO community, there's like a lot of people that think that she might just be full of it, trying to do it for the money, trying to get a book deal or something like that. So that's kind of the thought within. So we're gonna start this story by saying that even a lot of people in the UFO community that are big believers think there's something funny with her story,
Well, then he would have to be in on it, wouldn't he?
or he could have just been made up
Oh, yeah.
because there's no proof other than her story. There's no interview with him or anything. Now, she does have some kind of proof and stuff, and we'll get into some of that, some physical injuries and markings and stuff like that that could be taken as proof. So, according to her report, Karina says her and her friend, here's another thing, wishes only to be known as Jane Doe. She doesn't want to use her name.
Mm-hmm.
So now you've got somebody else in her stories that, and I'm not saying that, somebody might not want to look at as they're, off their rocker or a lunatic or you're making stuff up. So, it's not crazy to think that someone wouldn't want their real name involved in something
Yeah,
like this.
I understand that.
So anyway, Karina and this Jane Doe are supposed to be like really good friends. And Jane decides that she's going to drive up to Glenmore, British Columbia, where Karina lives. And they're just going to have like a little girls' weekend or whatever. So shortly after midnight on the 31st of July, 2003 is when this takes place. They decided they want to go take a drive so they could watch some stars. Because they probably didn't have any stars at her house. They said that traffic was relatively busy, especially for such a late hour. They wouldn't expect it to be as busy as what it was, and that'd come into play a little bit. It started to decrease shortly before they found a spot and pulled off the road. Now, Karina said that she used her flashlight to kind of highlight the points above, like in the sky.
Mm-hmm.
So she's using a flashlight. She's pointing to some places up there. And her friend was using her binoculars to kind of look around up in the sky. And within a few seconds, she just found these 3 stars up in the sky that were like in a triangle shape. And she said that they were extremely bright and like a solid white. So they didn't twinkle like regular stars was. And that's what caught her attention.
Oh.
She said then, though, they kind of start moving all as one object. So the triangle's moving all in the same way. They're not separating.
Do stars always have to twinkle?
No, but they usually do, though.
Yeah.
So the 2 women kind of thought, well, it must be a plane. So they quickly just dismissed the idea, though, because they said planes don't stop and hover, and this thing did.
Oh, yeah, no way.
So now the lights are starting to change color to a neon green.
Oh.
Then it comes to a stop. And they happen to notice that now there's no traffic at all outside. There's like no cars on the freeway.
What?
It's like them on the side and seeing this thing. So Karina reaches for the car's headlights and she turns them off. She then takes the flashlight. She kind of swings it around the area all around them. And what she's looking for is some kind of animals. Because she says there's a bunch of animals that lurk in the area there. And she wants to kind of see if she can see the eyeballs. Because, they've kind of, when you shine a flashlight on these animals like cats and dogs and all that. She said that she went right underneath where these lights were hovering in the sky. And she could see 5 sets of eyeballs looking right at them. So at first, she kind of thought these were like a pack of wild animals, somehow, some way. Then, though, she said, once you really look, your brain just kind of takes all this in. And in front of them, heading their way, were 5 creatures. They were around 4 feet tall, thin, gray shoulders, and they had a really thin frame. She said a surge of fear just kind of rushed through her, so much so that she began to kind of struggle to breathe, like a panic attack. She told her friend, hey, go get the car. And both women struggled to go get the car, though. And she said it was like everything went in slow motion. It was like they were moving through quicksand.
Oh.
So, despite all this, they eventually end up reaching the car. They got in the car, slammed the car doors, and they noticed that the windows, though, were still down. And it's a power windows. So they had to start the car. So they were sitting there panicking that these things are coming and the windows are down.
Yeah, that would be our luck.
They tried, and of course,
The
the
windows
ignition
wouldn't
wouldn't come on.
work? Oh, man.
So finally, they said all the car's electrical things, the gauges and stuff were
Yeah.
just going nuts. But then the car started. So they rolled the windows up, and then they sped away from the area as quick as they could. They did a turnaround in the middle of the road and headed back to the direction they came. So after several moments, they realized that increasingly more traffic was around their car. So when they took off, there was like no traffic. Then all of a sudden, traffic started picking up again. So they asked each other, where would all these vehicles have been coming from? Because they weren't there a second ago.
Yeah.
And perhaps more importantly, though, was why was there no traffic only moments ago when the strange creatures were heading towards them?
I guess nobody asked anybody else in any other cars.
No, not that I could see. So then she starts, heading down the road, and she said that her friend had the weirdest feeling as though there was like electricity running through her body. Talking about Jane Doe. She said it was like she got zapped from a battery. However, the two women noticed that the clock on the car's dashboard, and they both kind of froze because they said they'd only been out of the car just a matter of minutes, not even 5 minutes, they didn't think. However, according to the time, almost a half hour had gone by. So time had kind of disappeared, and neither one of the women could even think of where this time could have went because they knew they weren't out of the car in no time.
Wow. That's real weird.
So they start to discuss, did they possibly share a hallucination?
Yeah.
Or had they imagined the whole thing, which would have been odd considering
No,
it was
that
both
I don't
of
see
them.
how that could happen.
As they got closer and closer to home, though, they rode by this really large field. There was a glowing neon green ball out there in the field. This time, it was really low, like almost to the ground. It would move and then stop, move and then stop. It did this a bunch of different times. And eventually, Karina would bring the car to a halt, to stop. She left the car running smartly.
Yeah.
And as soon as she did this, the object began to kind of approach them at a really quick speed. Suddenly, it was right over top of their car. So Karina pressed down hard on the gas and the car sped away. But instead of remaining on the road, she decided to take a little shortcut through an orchard. And she kind of went in and out of some trees and everything there. And eventually, she did bring the car to a stop. She turned off the lights and turned the car off. She was kind of hoping that she would not be able to be seen by this thing, obviously. And, it would just move on and she'd go on her merry way. So they sat there for a couple minutes, and Jane told Karina, she's like, look out the front window of the car. And high above them, they could actually see a green light. And there was 3 of them, and they were all hovered overhead. And they said, but you could see it through the trees. So at that moment, the object moved, and all the green lights kind of moved together. After a little bit of time, they appeared to separate and go different ways. The lights did, each moving independently from the other. So taking her chance, Karina and her buddy decided that they turned the car back on, and then they sped away. This time, though, they got all the way to Karina's house, and, they would make a few more discoveries once they got to the house. So after a short little talk about what happened during the night, the 2 women decided to go to bed and try to get some kind of sleep. However, upon walking in the following morning, they would discover some strange markings and bruises on their bodies that they didn't notice that night.
Get out of here.
Karina, for example, she had this large bruise on her left breast. She also felt some discomfort. She would find that there was one on the underside of her foot.
Mm-hmm.
Both of these little places that she had, the one on the foot and the one on her breast, were both very painful to touch. So while they sat there drinking their coffee, Jane said, man, I feel really rough today. And she was, you know, just sitting there talking about it. And as she says this, a couple of drops of blood come from her nose and just drop onto the table.
Whoa.
So obviously, Karina comes over. She puts a towel to her
Yeah.
nose, kind of help her out, paper towel. And Jane was talking about how her lower back was really hurting her.
Mm-hmm.
So Karina said she'd take a look at it, and she discovered a circle burned into her skin,
What in
almost
the
like
world?
a brand,
Like a what?
like a brand, like you would for an animal.
Yeah.
She said it was in the lower middle back area. So after she's telling Jane about her own, bruises and stuff that she's got, she starts checking Jane's body out a little more, and they discover similar bruising to what Karina's was, but she had 3 strange finger marks on each of her thighs.
Oh, them dang aliens had his way with her.
Incidentally, Jane was visiting Karina from nearby Abbotsford, and in all the light of this recent deal, she decided that I think I'm gonna go ahead and head home instead of wait, because she was going to stay for a week or so.
Hell no, I'll be out there too.
She decided to go ahead and cut it short and going home. So when she gets back home, she goes and sees her doctor and has him examined about her back pain. And then he starts looking at the burn mark on her back, and he said it was similar to a radiation burn.
No way.
So according to Karina, her friend still has problems with this even today. This was 2003.
Like from it hurting and stuff,
Mhm.
you mean?